In this video, I'm going to try to answer a question: what camera is the right one for you? The Sony ZV-E1 content creator camera or the Sony FX30 cinema camera? Both are entry-level-ish video cameras. However, why would anyone choose a cinema camera over one that's made for self-absorbed narcissist vloggers? Sometimes we shill for large corporations, like all the time. For those who don't know, the Sony ZV-E1 is a camera that came out early 2023, part of the ZV series made for vloggers and content creators, made for social media influencers, full frame camera. And the FX30 is a camera that came out late 2022, APS-C entry-level cinema camera. Both are in a similar price bracket. Both are aimed for high production video. Both try to entice slightly different markets. And how do the cameras stack up? Let's talk about the advantages for the ZV-E1. You get full frame glory. Yes, that glorious 35mm sensor. More on that later. You get walking capable IBIS stabilization, dynamic stabilization, active stabilization. The IBIS is just better, even though it's kind of worse. You get a 3 capsule mic. So for those that wanted to keep it nice and simple, that mic in the front, in the rear, the stereo full surround sound mic, it's already built in. And while it's not as good as a dedicated mic, hey, it might get you by in a pinch. The camera is lighter. Despite having that fuller size sensor, it's a lighter camera. It has the swipe menu, and this is important, and I'll get into this later. It has the AI focus. It has AI-based auto framing. It has multi-human detection and reaction. Yes, it changes based on detecting multiple humans. There's product showcase, background defocus, cinema vlog. There's new looks, time-lapse video, seamless clear image zoom. You've got faster rolling shutter performance. You have flash photography. Yes, you can take flash photography with this camera, unlike the FX30. And you're going to get 1080p at 240 frames per second. The 4K 120 and 1080 240 update is going to be free in some regions and paid in others. And lastly, you have 10 gig USB. The advantages for the FX30: the price is $2,200 with audio adapter, or only $1,800 without the audio adapter. That is optional. That's $400 less. You know, $400 less, I could pour my gas like 4 times. It has a 26 megapixel sensor. There is active cooling. There's the XLR handle that is fully integrated. You have dual card slots, and they're not just dual, they're dual SD with CF Express Type A. You have full controls with joystick and lots of buttons and the front dial. You have full-size HDMI. Not only is the HDMI more robust on the FX30, it offers a way to record raw video. You have a robust body. You have time code. You have the Cine EI workflow. And newly released, you have DCI 4K. You have anamorphic de-squeeze. And you have a mature firmware. And I'll get more into this firmware issue a little bit later. Similarities of the ZV-E1 and FX30: you get 4K 120, unlimited recording, baked-in LUTs, and you get assist tools like focus breathing compensation and the codecs. There's plenty of them to go around. And of course, how can you forget the Z battery? It's good for a SIPA rated 570 shots or an hour and a half of 4K recording. Let's break down resolution. You have a 26 megapixel versus 12. The camera with the smaller sensor has a lot more pixels. However, these are video cameras. The output is going to be 4K, which is about 8 megapixels, and having less can be an advantage seen with the rolling shutter. The advantage of more megapixels would be something like a pixel-to-pixel mode or auto reframing. However, the FX30 doesn't have that feature, so it's a bit of a waste. Let's talk about the drawback for both cameras. No mechanical shutter, and the rolling shutter is worse in stills mode, meaning you'll be subject to more skew and banding. No EVF, and this can be viewed as an advantage in a way. You're not paying for things that you don't need as a video producer. However, there are more items. The lack of waveforms. That means that you just have to use whatever you have there, exposure compensation, zebras. You don't have the waveforms. Lack of shutter angle, and this is a cardinal sin for video users. So what's the case to buy the ZV-E1? Well, the most obvious reason is that it's full frame. And that means you get better gradations. That means you get a sensor that happens to be the most expensive and valuable part of the camera, and it's physically twice the size of an FX30's. The sensor happens to have higher dynamic range for better recovery. The sensor happens to perform better in low light. The bells and whistles that comes with this camera is immense, and while a lot of them feel like gimmicks, I could make the argument that they're built for speed and intuitive use. You've got that background blur button. I mean, that's just aperture priority, right? And you've got multi-person framing. That is just aperture priority, but it's automatic. You've got product showcase, which is essentially wide area AF with face detect turned off. Hey, but it's one step instead of making 2 or 3 changes in the settings. It's made to be quick, right? This is a content creator camera. You got the dumbed down menu where you control brightness and darkness. I mean, who does that? That's exposure compensation, or that's just adjusting manual settings. You've got the 2 swipe menus on the side. So that means that not having that front wheel isn't going to be as painful. Not having that joystick isn't going to be as painful. Fancy buttons are nice when you're looking through an EVF. However, they're less useful if your main display is an LCD. With this Apple iPhone, you can control everything on the screen. And I think that's where the ZV-1 appeals to, is market of these type of users where they control everything here. Well, with the ZV-E1, you can control everything on your LCD screen. And there's less use for scrolly things and toggles and levers. A similar train of thought can be said about the joystick. It's not as useful anymore considering all of the AI intelligent features that the camera offers. What you're getting here is a full frame sensor, and it is a good one that comes from the FX3, comes from the A7S III, FS6. So why would you buy the FX30 instead? Well, you need the reliability. You need the long run times. You need the backup slot for dual card slots. You're not going to use that dinky little HDMI. You want full-size HDMI. The FX30 is essentially a mini FX3, and it's beautiful. The utilitarian body that is rugged, designed well, and is built as tough as the heels worn by a plus-size model. It has the body that is highly desirable, and the 1/4 20 tabs can come in handy. That XLR handle, that is just a glorious setup to use, especially if you're trying to keep things small. You have a robust small system with quality audio. The FX30 has a smaller sensor. Fine. The FX30 is a full-fledged professional camera, and it comes in at a lower price, much lower price than the FX30, and even lower than the ZV-E1. So which one should you buy? And if you're going off price, the FX30 looks like the clear winner here. You're buying this professional camera with XLR handle, and it's going to cost as much as the ZV-E1 with no audio components. And the FX30, the use price is typically going to stay stronger. That's just my opinion based on having the FX3. You're just going to have a better use price because these cinema cameras, the supply of them isn't just as high as a camera for vloggers that everyone is going to get. I mean, a lot of people are going to get this ZV-E1. That's my prediction, at least. So the price, when you exchange it for another one, because of whatever reason, because it might have single card slots and you just can't deal with it anymore, it's going to remain higher with the FX30. The FX30 has a newer sensor. The FX30 is rugged as hell. Look at the body mount on this thing. The FX30 has 6 screws, and the FX ZV-E1 has 4. And it's been a while since I even used a camera with 4 screws. It's like the A7R original one. It's just not very robust. That said, I mean, both cameras are dust and moisture resistant. And the case for the ZV-E1 is that the gimmicks, the AI framing with the HDMI output, hey, that thing can be a real useful feature, even though it may seem gimmicky at first. I mean, based on the samples I've seen right now, everybody's moving very fast, and I don't think that's how it's meant to be. I mean, you're pacing around a room, you could be giving a speech, you're not going to be running around. That's where it might look funny. You're not going to be rushing a scene because, YouTube favors quick edits and whatnot. You might be using this feature because you're trying to convey your thoughts. You might be using this feature because you want to make your scene interesting. You might be using this feature because you have a church. You might have this feature because you're embarrassed on stage. The gimmicks of the ZV-E1, like the product showcase, it turns out that it's just really useful using that because it's fast and it's intuitive to use. I've used it with the ZV-1 and it's great. The gimmick with the clear image zoom. In the past, when you use the lever to zoom in, you've got up to 1.5, but as soon as you hit 1.1 and beyond, you have this new square, and then you're no longer using the intelligent AF. You have no eye autofocus. It's just focusing on whatever's closest, and it doesn't even show you the marker that you're focusing on it. However, with this newer upgrade, IAF still works. This becomes a lot more usable feature because you can't be using AF without the dependability. This isn't Panasonic, this is Sony. So that makes your lenses a lot more useful. Faster field use isn't the only advantage here. You have LUTs that are already applied to your footage, so that means color grading might not happen. You have time lapses that may have that same LUT and it's already assembled as a video. You have your stabilization that is rock solid and you don't have to do post stabilization. You have framing that is already keyframed and there's no zoom in, zoom out. Your footage may be ready to go. And if you're producing a lot of content, this is going to come in clutch because editing takes a long time. Even this video that I'm just talking to you, it's going to take me like 5 or 6 hours just to edit. Regarding lenses, the FE lineup is just where it's at. I'm not saying that the E-mount system for APS-C is weak. It's getting considerably stronger. You've got the 11, you've got the 15, you've got the 10 to 20, you've got Viltrox making that 13 1.4. It is becoming a really strong system. Sigma just came out with a couple more DC lenses. They have that 18 to 50, that tiny little lens. Yeah, it is an attractive system. It's just that the FE setup now has the 20 to 40, it has the 20 to 70, has the 35 to 150, which I'm using to film this right now. Absolutely amazing lens. So the FE mount is just a little bit more mature. However, it is going to be a little bit more expensive. It's going to be a little bit larger, even though they are constantly shrinking. Another aspect you have to consider is the firmware treatment. Boy, oh boy, the FX30 got a nice one. It got the anamorphic de-squeeze. It has DCI 4K. What Sony does is they treat their cinema cameras extremely well and they completely ignore everything else, consumerish, like the A7 IV is due for an update. The last one was a 2.0. The A7S III disaster, well, also A1, that's even a bigger disaster. They didn't get anything. And because they're Alpha Series, and I guess Alpha Series is considered consumerish, while FX Series is their Pro Cinema lineup. Even when you go into their website, you don't buy the Pro Cinema lineup on their typical website. You go to their Pro website to buy that camera. So at the end of the day, you have the ZV-E1, which is essentially a part spin camera. However, the part spin happened to come from partially a $3,500 camera and partially the A7C with that inferior IBIS. However, with that dynamic stabilization, oh yeah, that dynamic stabilization, that does keep the ZV-E1 apart from basically anything on the Sony lineup. It's beyond active stabilization, so that means that you could do your trucking shots more smoothly, and maybe you won't have to use a gimbal. You can do your walk and talks more smoothly. However, there is a crop, so that 16 to 35 is going to come in clutch. And on the flip side, the FX30 isn't going to overheat on you. It has active cooling. The ZV-E1 is rated for 30 minutes of 4K 60 at 25 degrees Celsius, 77 degrees Fahrenheit. So that is a respectable amount of filming. I'm not sure if you're going to be filming 4K 60 for 30 minutes. However, you might. That might be your thing. And if it is your thing, then get an FX30 instead, because those long takes that you're doing at sporting events, that you're doing at, yeah, I can't really think of that many scenarios where you might do that long take at 4K 60, but they're not, it's just not going to hold up. The camera it's small. It's like the smallest full frame camera there is. And because of its size, it can't even fit a full-size HDMI in there. And it can't even fit dual card slots in there because it's tiny. So if you need a full professional camera, however, what exactly is professional? Are these vloggers making money from their work? A lot of them do. I'm pretty sure Gerald Undone makes a lot of money, and he's not a vlogger. But Casey from Camera Conspiracy, I know he's posted his numbers and he makes a good bit of money doing his YouTube thing. I myself, I have a lot of FE lenses. I have a few APS-C lenses, and I haven't been posting videos regularly is because I have 4 monetized YouTube channels, and so I'm working a lot on the other ones, and so you haven't seen me here. And that's why I have the ZV-E1 on order, because it really does fit me very well. I'm going to be using it for travel. I'm going to use it for my YouTube videos. And yeah, there's definitely going to be more ZV-E1 content on the way. And of course, I'm filming with my B camera, the A7 Mark IV, which is also a fantastic camera. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, share. See you in the next one. Take care.